We are so much more than the way that society portrays us. Like we're so much more. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this series, because a lot of times our work, we are seen as hidden figures. When folks go to talk to quote unquote experts on it, it's often not Black leadership. You got people out here opining about our pain and our issues that have never experienced it. Society lingers too much in the pain piece. And while those things are true, we're still here, and there's so much more to our story, the joy and the inspiration. And so I wanted to focus my capstone on Black leadership. I just feel like there's so many amazing and talented Black leaders that I would like to highlight. And so that's why the series is called A Seat at the Table. That's what this series is really about, is like reaching out to people who over the course of, my time or career, I've really respected and really just wanted to like dive a little bit more into their story.
You try so hard, hoping that one day something gon' change.
It's one thing to see a picture of your grandmother who has passed. When you see a film of her and she's walking around, like it brings people back, and it connects people like emotionally to their personal history. Those personal histories are what make up like the official larger history. What gets written about, what gets remembered, what gets validated is what survives. So I think so much of the reason why elements of Black history were not talked about or really considered fully, because the archival record isn't there.
I just feel like these movies are showing real Black life on the South Side, not the like stereotypical images that can be seen in a variety of media.
We have not as a nation really reckoned with poverty. We allowed public housing to be torn down because we're embarrassed about poor people. What we could have done was fought to make it better. That's our space. And we gotta fight for that space.
Food for me is a demonstration of love. Like how we nourish our people, how we care for our people, the quality of that is how we demonstrate love.
The life expectancy changes that we're seeing even on like the West Side. Like if you just take the blue line out, 20 minutes, life expectancy drops precipitously. It's not just because patients are making bad decisions and they just want to eat what they want to.
This is by design, and that this is unequal, and unfortunately, the cost that we're paying for all of the diabetes medication, the high blood pressure medication.
You got to think about, well, what resources are available to them? What sort of access do they have to quality care?
Right? Our people deserve better.
Come to them with saying, hey, what can I do for you? Without asking them for anything. Lend yourself without strings. You got to go through their vetting period. Who sent you? And what do you want? I'm going to support you because you have to find your own way. You can't discover who you are and all that you can be if you're sitting on the sidelines.
I've heard from girls say, oh, well, they don't want us. They just feel intrinsically that they're not desired and they're not wanted.
The schools and students that we serve are from the communities in which we came from. And so we knew, what our students weren't receiving.
My work never came with power. My work was always dependent upon social capital and me getting to know people and to build credibility with them and to put in the work. And so
I think that there is fundamentally something intangible and priceless when you see people who look like you having a seat at the table and being able to make decisions.
My mom did a lot of special education, and she was a teacher's aide because I have two younger brothers with autism. And my dad used to work for Kraft General Food. Hardworking parents kind of made me feel like there wasn't anything that I couldn't do. You're gonna go farther than we did.
And, as a kid, you don't necessarily believe all of that. You don't necessarily understand and absorb that message in your fiber. at least not consciously.
I was probably 6 or 7 when I decided that I wanted to be a lawyer. Didn't really know what it meant, but I knew that there was power in being able to understand what the law was.
And so I have to believe that the things that I have accomplished in my life and the way in which I've been able to move in the world is really rooted in us being the hopes and dreams of the slave, right? And I know that I, in my walk every day, fulfill my parents' hopes and dreams for me and for my life.
Which I still have to remind myself, your path isn't necessarily chartered just by you, right? And that there's a higher power or higher being that is putting you in the spaces that you that you need to be in, whether you realize it or not.
That was always the way that my mother raised me and my sister. That was huge for me. It grounded me in a really strong understanding of the needs of folks living across the south side of Chicago.
Service was always a big part of our lives as a family.
And that's where we began to understand community development. And his goal was that we would use our gifts and talents to rebuild neighborhoods like North Lawndale. And there are 3 tenets in Christian community development. One is relocation. So you relocate, move back to the neighborhood that you were born in. Reconciliation, you be reconciled across race, across class. And final, redistribution, which is about economic development.
So I think that the origins of being a nurturer, the origins of being somewhat of a caretaker, was natural for me, in that role of being an older sister. And so I did, but I had no idea or thought at that time that that would be a career path for me.
My mother, I was not allowed to say the word can't when I was growing up. My mother's philosophy was, you can do anything you put your mind to, even eat an elephant. You just have to do it one bite at a time.
One thing that won't happen immediately is we have to fix the leaky pipeline, right? The higher you go, there's less and less representation.
At BAE Systems, it was a small team, but I was the only African-American in the engineering department. And so it didn't sit well with me. I love the work of engineering, right? So I love being able to create things. People around the world utilize, being able to walk into an AT&T store and folks trying to sell me phones that I built, it's actually pretty hilarious.
When you're the only, you feel like you're walking on a tightrope and you feel like you are representing everyone who's Black. You're probably inspiring someone else to keep going the distance. So there's just that's the minority tax. You might hear like, you gotta be twice as good to get, half as much as anyone else. So,
but we were really just passionate, and we continue to be passionate about trying to impact our community. We believe in the kind of the FUBU method, the for us, by us. And so,
as they're nervous about these opportunities and feeling as if they are not enough, so they have no hope. And you get to talking to them, and what seems to be an apathetic kid is not, on the low. She braids hair and does lashes on the side. Oh yeah, I work in my pizza sometimes too. And then you're going to school and you're taking care of nieces and nephews or younger siblings to get them ready. And you're still doing decent in school. That's CEO behavior.
Even as deputy mayor, just the pride from people of color, that has been just a wonderful thing. And, I'm a person who grew up, again, in the church, so no respecter of title. It's really about your character and who you are as a person. It's not about your title. But it has been heartwarming to see that people, are proud of me. Simply because, they see representation.
Why can't a business start in Austin and grow from there and take over the city and eventually the Midwest and eventually the nation?
Mm-hmm.
And then you can say, here's how we did this, here's where we started, here's how we built this foundation, and here's how we grew on top of it. Take that as a blueprint, take that to Lawndale, take that to South Shore, take that to any other way. Yeah, you can scale it elsewhere. I just feel like every time you talk about investment in our communities, it's always something charitable. And I'm just like, screw that. Like, we deserve small businesses. Why can't we have commerce?
I want to do work that is fulfilling, work that matters.
But you get up and you love what you do every day, and it's having an impact.
Work that does not require me to work 2 and 3 low wage jobs just to make it, not get ahead, right? And so what we're seeing is that people, they're looking for the opportunity to truly live and not just scrape by.
We're always talking about the gender pay gap, the gender leadership gap. But before we can even get girls to thinking about any of those other gaps, we have to really deal with what I call the hope gap. The girls, as you're talking and preparing them for summer jobs and asking who's interested, I've heard from girls say, oh, well, they don't want us. It doesn't even have to be the company with the internship. They just feel intrinsically that they're not desired and they're not wanted. So it becomes important for us to show that it is possible, and that also the important thing is it's already innately within them.
What's the community that you want to live, learn, work, and play in, right? You want a safe and thriving community, right? You want safe communities where you can take your kids to the park, and you want a vital community. That's all about economic development and having jobs and having community infrastructure, having, the parks, and you want sustainability. So sustainable communities is all about environmental justice. You want fresh water, you want smart communities. That's all about kind of the intersection with how do we make sure we're getting people where they need to go? How many people have said all of the potholes on your block? Digital equity is a real thing, broadband expansion so that folks actually have access to the internet, and you want healthy communities. So that's all about health and well-being.
But basically a quality of life plan is a process to engage community around identifying the issues that they believe act as impediments to their success. Will best position organizations that have capacity, commitment, and competency to implement those actions, and investors and really act as a blueprint for investment. And that's the beauty of doing a quality of life plan, because you can literally get everybody's interests on the board, and you can look at where the intersections, you can work together to find those intersections so that now you can have a cohesive quilt. Nobody will walk away and feel like they weren't heard.
We got to influence the things that impact our lives. We're teaching our leaders that they can negotiate around their money. They can't be in, what Cornel West talks about in Race Matters, nihilism, right? Which means an absence of hope. We now are basically injecting hope back into that. That's democracy. We're now negotiating with our money. One of the reasons why we want flowers and beauty in our buildings is because we want the image that, people deserve beauty.
Vacant lots, trash on the ground, all of this stuff, right? And then you wonder why this is the mode within the community. But what if we start to redevelop those schools into functional centers that look really pristine and beautiful and free from trash and so forth? You don't think the hearts and minds of people are going to change? And I believe that the Austin community is going to be the pride of Chicago. It is going to be the attraction. People going to come to this city saying, I got to go to the Austin area. That's what we get. Yeah, we're going to stay over here, but when are we going to the Austin area?
Too crazy.
I am a badass because I do what other people won't.
Connect this group, and do some powerful stuff, and then go stand in the back of the room, and let the magic happen. The architect of girl greatness.
It is about the relationship building and recognizing that thread that just runs through everything.
I think that has been one of my superpowers. I can relate to anyone, whether you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth or you grew up in the hood, right?
I've had people say I'm very unassuming, using that to just build strong relationships.
I think the power to really listen to people.
Want more for for us and my willingness to go get it however I need to.
So here's the scientific version of what makes me a badass. If there's no way to do it, I'm gonna find one. We find a way out of no way.
I think that my superpower has always been connecting the dots for there to be a collective sense of purpose and practice and action.
I'm a badass because Jesus is a badass.
Good times.